Hey guys, welcome back to the show. This is Here's Rodder's Reviews. I'm your host, Rodney Stewart, and this is He-Man and the Masters of the Universe. This episode is called Double-Edged Sword. Absolutely wonderful little episode. I really enjoyed this one there's quite a bit of action in it. The storytelling in it is fantastic. The story you learn right here, or the lessons you learn, is epic. I really did enjoy it. So I like to check the synopsis on most of these episodes just to see. There was one guy whose job was to write a little 3 or 4 line synopsis for each episode, and I love checking them out because some of them are fairly accurate and some of them are obviously written by people that were kind of like, I'm here, I've got a job to do, can't really be bothered. So let's see what this one says. Double-edged sword. A new piece of Eternium is discovered in the sands of time. But as the heroes attempt to retrieve it, Merman and Trapjaw get to it first. Now He-Man must battle Trapjaw, who is powered by Eternium. That is accurate. Basically, there's this substance, this rock, mineral, whatever you want to call it, that Eternia uses as a power source, Eternium, and at the palace they're running short. This stuff can power Eternia pretty much, from what they're saying. Once this runs out, it'll take out the power for pretty much all of Eternia, so they need to find a replacement for it. And in the sands of time, there is a little guy. He's out practicing his target practice. He is a little guy called gosh, I'm not even looking at the right thing here. I took a note of some of the names. There's quite a few characters pop up in these shows, and you tend to trip over names every once in a while, so I like to make notes of it. Chad, this little guy, is out doing some target practice. He's dying to become one of the Royal Guard at some point, and he's got a lot of hero worship for He-Man and Teela and Man-at-Arms, everybody that's in the Royal Guard. But his grandfather Eldon, who's crippled from the waist down, in a hovering wheelchair, essentially he's like Professor X from the X-Men, and he's telling Chad that, you know what, it's not all fun and games being part of the guard. It's people can get hurt and whatnot. And then the subject comes around to the fact that he's in a wheelchair, and this little guy Chad doesn't know why he has lost the power of his legs, and he's just about to tell his grandson the story of what happened and how he lost the use of his legs, but he gets distracted by a hole in a rock that Chad made with his target practice, and inside it there's this little diamond which turns out to be Eternium. So he sends word back to the palace, and Teela, Prince Adam, Orko and Cringer are coming out to get hold of it. While that's happening, Trapjaw and Merman also discover the news. They decide they're going to come for it themselves before He-Man or whoever can get there. They're going to try and get there first, steal this thing, because it's one of the most powerful objects in the universe, so they want to get hold of it. So they get there before the heroes do, and Merman uses his power to call up this beast from the deep. In the middle of this desert, he does manage to find water and bring a beast out of it called a Spidosaur, and sends that after this kid and his grandfather, but they're rescued by He-Man and the heroes before too much damage can happen. The grandfather actually managed to disable the ship that Trapjaw and Merman were on, delaying them, so by the time they actually get to see what's happening, these two have been saved and the Spidosaur has been defeated. So they decide, okay, they were rescued by He-Man. Screw that, let's turn and go home again. So they turn to leave, but Trapjaw comes up with the idea of Eternium. What if I ate a piece of it? It would make me the strongest person on the face of the planet. I'd be as strong as He-Man. So they decide to go back. They manage to get hold of it, and he bites a chunk out of it and manages to actually power himself up. And him and He-Man go hand to hand in this episode. Trapjaw is making a good stand against He-Man, but eventually the power of this Eternium starts to wear off, and at this point he's holding a giant boulder above his head, and when it wears off, of course the strength wears off of it, and he gets trapped below this boulder. At this point, Merman has been captured by Teela, and Trapjaw uses one of his mechanical arms. Well, he only has one mechanical arm, but he has this grabber device on it, and he reaches across and grabs another little chunk of this Eternium to power himself up again. But there's this little creature in here called a Burbie. It's like a little pet of Chad's. It's like a little dog-like creature that floats, and it moves by spinning its tail, and it flies. It sees that Trapjaw's going for another piece of this, and it rushes to stop him from eating it, and it does manage it. It grabs hold of it in its mouth, flies away. Trapjaw's then captured by Teela, put into like a portable prison sort of a deal, but the Burbie actually accidentally swallows the piece of Eternium, which turns out to be poisonous to the creature, and it's dying. Like, I'm not gonna lie, as I said at the start, storytelling in this episode is fantastic. I did actually get a little bit, I did tear up slightly at the end of this episode, because this little thing, it's a cute wee creature, and completely innocent. They don't know what they're going to do. It's going to die, but He-Man reckons he knows someone that can help, and he goes to Castle Grayskull for the help of the sorceress, and she says too late for her powers to help it, but there is this chamber of life in there, and He-Man asks about that, and the sorceress says, well, a mortal is going to have to carry him in. I can't control the magic in it. So He-Man walks into this room, this beam of energy, with the little Burbie in his hands, and by the end of the episode we find out the story of how the grandfather lost the use of his legs. It turns out Chad didn't know that his grandfather was a guard at one point in his life. Obviously, before the kid was born, as a young man, he was very trigger happy, and always was just like his grandson. You know, had a lot of hero worship for those types of people, and he was very gun happy and whatnot. And as part of the guard, he was sent to help out this place that was been attacked by orcs, and he drove them off using this scatter ray gun. But having saved the people he went there to save, his recklessness with the gun brought a cliff face down on him and actually paralysed him from the waist down. And he's like, I was actually one of the lucky ones. There were some other people that didn't get out alive. So as long as Chad's been alive, he's only known his grandfather as this man that's against fighting, against violence. And the kid's actually surprised earlier on in the episode, whenever his grandfather has to actually use the gun to disable the ship that Merman and Trapjaw was on, and he's amazed that his grandfather, even in the wheelchair, was able to use the shield as well as he could, and he was one of the best shots he'd ever seen in his life. But he discovers by the end of the episode that, you know, fighting's not the glory that he thought it would be. And as he gets this realisation, He-Man comes out of Grayskull, and he's got the little Burbie with him, and it's back to full health, and everybody's happy and contented and whatnot. And you get to see the the change in Chad's character at the end of the episode. He's like, you know, I always thought that I wanted to be a guard, but I'm not so sure anymore. Like, you know, if people fight, they're going to get hurt. And He-Man's like, of course. But if you ever do decide that you want to become part of the Royal Guard, I'll put a good word in for you. So, the kid learns a lesson by the end of the episode, and the PSA at the end of it is essentially just saying the same thing over again. He-Man comes on screen and talks to the viewer and tells him, you know what? Movies and TV shows show all this sort of stuff. Like, even what you're watching now, He-Man and the Masters of the Universe, he doesn't mention his own show by name, but even this show, he says, that kind of glorifies violence in a way. But in real life, you know, if you're going to fight and use guns and that sort of thing, people can get hurt and people can get killed, so be careful. As essentially the story here is just like, you know, you can hero worship all these sorts of people all you want, but at the end of the day, people really can get hurt. Fantastic episode. Really did enjoy this one. Definitely, if you've never checked out this series before, this is probably a good jumping on point right here as far as the storytelling goes. And yes, I wasn't ready for this episode at all. I love good storytelling, and it's unreal how you can get such a good story, a good emotional story from a cartoon. That's what I enjoy about the 80s stuff. Not to put down some of the newer stuff, but you know what, I kind of feel that storytelling, modern storytelling these days, hasn't got the same impact that it used to have. It almost seems like modern storytelling is afraid to go places that shows in the 80s were not afraid to go to. Like, you know, some of the stuff in here with the grandfather and the whole wheelchair and everything I got there would be, somebody would get upset about that these days. But it was a device to tell the story, and it was very, very impactful in the way that they done it. Fantastic episode. That's going to do it, guys. I'll talk to you in the next one.